I saw that new Indiana Jones movie. I thought it was okay. It probably wasn't the best. It's almost kind of like the Crystal Skull. It gets people kind of mixed up. I mean, almost like the Star Wars purists versus the newest, editions. Some people love them, some people hate them. Obviously, for especially people in the parents, generation of Gen Z, the ones who obviously, grew up going to the original Star Wars, the original three, 77 and in the early 80s. That's obviously when they were in high school, middle school. That's kind of their coming of age movies. So obviously nowadays we kind of had ours with those, new three Star Wars. Most people in at least the older parts of Gen Z, were going to high school and college and upper middle school when the new three started coming out. But the interesting, I guess, topic of time travel into the past, I thought was pretty interesting. I'm going to kind of make a little spin on it for the situation. So, obviously, I talked about, depending upon when I post this, I may post one talking about liberty, parent of science and indus being early in our currency. Say someone, like Sims or whatever, is keen on religion and religious control, whatever. I'm just going where I want to go. This has been painful and I want to get to the truth. Whatever shakes things up and tests the waters. So, say, him and his dad, obviously using connections and church money, whatever, infiltrate the US government. And there's a project trying to do time travel in the future and the past. Say for the sake of breaking with, current science understanding, the past is the one that's able to be achieved first. Travel into the past, which obviously doesn't make scientific sense yet or now. But say that's the one they achieve first, the ability to go into the past. And say that's when, Sims, etc. want to make their move. Their goal is because maybe they see me as some bad demonic entity or something. Let's just say in this cinematic masterpiece of Wagner's oratory, that I have a relative that was a spy in the revolution. And Sims, etc. want to kill that spy, end my bloodline. I don't think I did, but this is just for cinematic experience. A Texas Instrument Company, what is it? Cinedyne. So obviously, Sims, has infiltrated this project. Obviously, double playing, Homeland Security, the science, all that. And really the motive is to go back and, do things on behalf of religious control, doing things that ensure an outcome that they want or need to happen. So eventually they kidnap me and there's a bag over my head and they're going to do the first, I guess, expedition into the past. They want to go to a time where my relative, the spy, is still alive and kill them. They're unsure exactly, when and where to arrive in that whatever portal. But knowing the religious and faith and all the superstition, they say, here, just do it here. This is what God told me to do. Do it here. This point. And unbeknownst to them, I'm hearing in the distance and I know you're going to end up in the fucking wrong point in time. My relative at that point is going to already have been killed by the British. You're going to put us, dead smack in the path of Washington and his troops after, my relative, the spy, was dead. And I don't want to tell them that because obviously I have skin in the game there, literally. So, are you sure, Mr. Sims? Are you sure this is where you want to go? What point? Yes, God told me. God is never wrong. He pushes the button himself and we all get blasted into the past. And they take the bag over my head and said, you know what, Faggotian, this is when you're going to die. We're going to kill a relative of yours who was a hero with the same spirit. We need this spirit to be eradicated. So, obviously, at that point, I see everything. I see that we're clearly in a different time. This is the late 1700s. Very different. Horse and buggy, it's unbelievably different. And I noticed that Sims has on Jordans that in red, white, and blue say, in God we trust, he has a plan. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. I got this. So naturally we have to disguise an attire of the time. Of course, Sim doesn't want to ditch those fucking shoes. But we're all dressed up as 1700s people. He's got Andrew Olson and, Cole Johnson and a few others as his henchmen taking us back. I am, obviously bound in tethers. And my goal is to obviously get free. If I can get free, I can obviously have control of the situation. Because they're still probably going to try to do something that's not good. In this case, they're going to try to kill someone who can still help their outcome. They're going to try to beat me and try to get my knowledge of history to figure out who they need to kill. So that obviously we're just kind of living and trying to blend into 18th century life in the colonies during the Revolution. And obviously I'm able to try to get people to try to kill these guys that have me bound. First one is I have them get them to turn on Andrew Olson. I say to some people, this man right here, I attest to it. I saw him burn the pamphlet of common sense. And he laughed while he did it, as it was a comical endeavor to him. And at that point, they, tarred and feathered Andrew Olson. And obviously, at that point, Sim is getting more mad. He's getting more impatient. Who do I need to kill to make sure that America's right wing, that January 6th can be successful? All this stuff. And he starts punching me, beating me. He punches me straight in the chest and knocks the wind out of me. I'm sitting there, huffing and puffing like I'm asthmatic. He's like, faggot, who do I need to kill? Just going totally irate because he's so invested in it. You can almost see like the vitriol on his face. And at that point, I stop coughing and wheezing and I say, well, you missed your mark. We're on the wrong time. He's like, no, we're not. And I say, yeah, we are. And so he finds the historical records. And he's like, fuck you, you're right. How the fuck do you know it, you fucking devil harlot? And then, obviously, I just remain silent. Eventually, we go through time. I'm able to get, people trumped up enough to kill, Cole Johnson, who's obviously one of the big guys that able to just beat me whenever I follow the line and try to escape. Eventually, we're caught up in the middle of a battle between the American regulars, the militia, and then, the Hessian dragoons and the British regulars. We're kind of in the middle of it. It's only me, Sims, and 3 or 4 of his, armed henchmen who obviously had to ditch their Glocks and their ARs in favor of muskets and, obviously flintlock pistols. So we're caught in the middle of this battle, and Sims is starting to lose it. He wants to go back. He wants to go back to his dad and his organization with results to prove that he did something. So he's obviously getting really hard, beating me, obviously firing a musket by my ears. Now the side that he fired it by is ringing, all of that. And at that point, General Washington and his, leadership, his officers are on their horses going by, and they see what Gavin is doing. They see in his face is the vitriol, the intensity, and they see that that's something that's almost evil, almost like possessed in a way, like almost beastly. And they're watching it. And at that point, Sims turns his head and sees, Washington, and it obviously sends chills, but he sees that as demonicness, not that this is a man who's changed the world, someone to look up to, someone who's being in the presence of should be an honor, not something you just get into a pissing contest over who's the bigger man. And he's like, who the fuck are you? Who do you think you are coming up on me? I represent God in America. And I'm like, oh fuck, he just really messed up there. And he's just sitting there ranting about religion, how America's going to be fucked up because of atheism and science and, revolution and enlightenment. And Washington looks over at me and I'm just sitting there respectful, obviously just kind of, standing down and at ease when Sims is like, fuck you, who the fuck do you think you are? You're not a big man, just going crazy. Obviously, paintings and money don't particularly always accurate in how someone exactly looked. He didn't know who he was talking to. And I say, please, General, you're a great man. We need to be returned to our timeline. And whatever. And obviously, then Sims raises his, flintlock pistol at the general. The general pulls his out and shoots Sims left of the heart. And then he still tries to grab a dagger. And then one of the regulars fires a musket into Sims right in his heart. And obviously at that point he falls and dies. And I am, grabbed and taken. And then they kill the remaining Sims henchmen. And at that point, Sims' body is carried on this gurney, and I'm taken to this tent. And I'm talked to and have a discussion with Washington. And it's very interesting. So, obviously, I return to my time back to 2023. And Sims is obviously dead. I have to bring him with. And obviously the discussion of you have to destroy anything modern that we brought into here. Anything. Gum, clothing, anything that's modern, I have to either take back with me or to ensure it's destroyed, not to disrupt the timeline too much. And obviously at that point, I share a drink with that honorable man, and then I leave, I depart. I'm given a flag with the 13 stars on it in a circle, and he says, don't waste your life. And I embark back to the present. I get back, obviously Sims with 2 musket balls in them, one smaller, one bigger. I dump them at the foot of Washington Monument, and I hoist up the flag with the 13 stars and stripes. And at that point, I go back to where I'm living then, and the FBI breaks down my door, smoke grenades and whatever, because they obviously know that they were double-crossed. On the way out, Sims shot and killed a national security person who just found out, hey, we were double-crossed and played by this right-wing religious organization, right? So, obviously, at that point, I'm taken in and they were asking me all this stuff. And, that flag you had, that was basically like it was made yesterday, but the stitching and everything is correct. In the 1770s, 1780s. And we found, Gavin Sims, who played and obviously became a traitor to the U.S. government, dead with 2 musket balls in them. Fresh lead musket balls, silver. They were not corroded, they were fresh, fired lead musket balls that struck him. And at that point, they're asking me all these questions. How was it successful? Who did you talk to? And I say, I'd like to invoke my Fifth Amendment privilege. Thank you.